And next up, to discuss democratic design principles at IKEA, we have their very own former head of design of IKEA. Please welcome all the way from Sweden, Mr. Marcus Engman. All right, have a good time.
Okay, great to be here. Great to talk about democratic design for Freshworks. What an effort they're doing, actually, to take on this new path. I come all the way from Sweden. It says SKEWED behind me, I hope, somewhere, if we get things to work. Where is the presentation? Huh? All the way from Sweden. There it is. So, actually, I left IKEA in October, but starting off this, maybe I should share what we did for the 7 years when I was there. So let's start off with a small movie of all of the crazy stuff that we did. Okay, so that's actually more than 50 collaborations that we did during 6 years with anything from musical artists to fashion to pets, as you saw. On top of that, I don't know how much do you know about IKEA, this small company? I used to work there as head of design, and head of design, then you manage all of the identity of IKEA and, of course, all of the product lines and so on. We actually churned out 4 billion products, produced, designed 4 billion products a year to 900 million visitors to our stores, 2.5 billion visitors to the IKEA website every year, and 2,000 new product developments of news of products every year. And this is done in this small place called Älmhult. 10,000 inhabitants in the middle of nowhere in the southern parts of Sweden. That's kind of crazy to be able to do that. It's not New York. It's absolutely not Las Vegas. It's only trees there. So what I would like to do with you is to share some tricks, 4 actually, that has made IKEA successful and that keeps IKEA being a successful business and attracting people as well. So number 1, I think to be a company with a vision and a business idea, which is not all about business or making money or selling stuff, but to have a vision with empathy at the core. And IKEA's vision is to create a better everyday life for the many people. And that's a vision, and that's a task that's never going to be ready. So everybody has to strive for this every day. No matter how good you are, you could always become better. So I think this is like one of the major tricks for IKEA, and everybody knows this vision within the company as well. Secondly, I think that most people regard IKEA as a quite innovative and creative company, has been for 70 years now. To be creative, you need to be curious first, because if you're not curious, you're never going to be creative. So to have a curiosity-driven approach for everybody working within the company is really, really important. And how do you do that? One of the things is to be extremely interested in your customers, like Freshworks. What we did within IKEA is not just relying on normal research from out of big research companies, because then they have a tendency to have the same kind of result. Everybody gets the same kind of result. We went home to people every year. Everybody within IKEA does this, no matter where you work within IKEA, and do home visits, where you interview people, where you actually live together with people in their homes to get to know, to make them share what are the problems, because the problems are the business ideas of the future. And if you look upon, I remember when we started out in India, it's a couple of years ago, we actually did more than 1,000 home visits to India, just to learn what's different. How do we adapt to India in a good way? What could we learn as IKEA? One of the things that we learned, which I think is kind of funny, is that the way that people are washing their homes or cleaning their homes. In India, in a lot of places, they use a shitload of water. Just pouring out like water on the floors. And of course, IKEA furniture was not designed for that kind of cleaning environment. So what we needed to do was actually to make our furniture better, to encapsulate the legs of everything, to invent new lacquers and new foil techniques to be able to do that. And then if you would have been a normal company, you would have stayed with those things within India, because that's typically for the Indian market. But we saw that doing that for the Indian market and bringing that to the rest of the world, that would make IKEA pieces of furniture better in the rest of the world as well. So taking learnings in different parts of the world and make them global. That's one of the ideas, and that is part of the curiosity-driven approach. The other part, now we're on number 3, which I think is super important. If you want to be a design-led company, and IKEA wanted to be a design-led company, then you have to find ideas that you could come together about. And democratic design was actually introduced more like a tool for product development from the very beginning. But what we understood along the way was that this is not a tool, it's actually a language. It's a common language around design that makes design important for everybody within the company. No matter if you work with sales, if you're an engineer, if you're a designer, or an interior designer, you could talk about products in the same way. The way that we talk about it at IKEA was those 5 pillars: form, function, quality, sustainability, and low price. And of course, you could see that this would attract, the different pillars attracts different parts of a company. It makes people come together to solve that impossible thing, the impossible task of making a product which contains of all 5. I'll take you through an example. This is one of my favorite products. It's one of the first ones that we did when I started out at IKEA. Again, I must say, because I worked there in the 90s as well. And this is a water carafe. It doesn't look like much, but it is so good. First of all, the starting point for this water carafe was not to make a water carafe. It was actually to make people use more tap water instead of buying water in bottles. So that was the starting point for the project. If you look upon the form of this one, most water carafes have a narrow neck, just because you want to have that, historically, cluck sound when you pour the water, because that sounds nice. But there's a lot of drawbacks to that. Usually it makes the body a little bit more fat, and yeah, I'll come to that later. What we started out doing was actually, how could we make people use more tap water? Most countries, except for China maybe, you want the tap water to be cold. So you have your water carafe inside of your fridge. And in the fridge, you have it mostly in the doors. That's what we saw from all of our home visits. So what are the sizes of the doors? We researched all of the door sizes of fridges all around the world to get the right kind of diameter that made the shape of this carafe. On top of that, then, you have the function. Function, if you're a Scandinavian designer, goes very well together with the form, always. And the shape is also actually from out of the function. We saw that one of the problems with not using water carafes and buy bottled water is actually that it's hard to clean a lot of the water carafes. So could we make one which is easy to clean? And that's all about the neck, to widen the neck a little bit and to make the height right for being upside down in a dishwasher. So what you see here is from out of practicalities a lot. When it comes to quality, we said from the very beginning that we want something which should be long-lasting and age in a beautiful way. So glass is a super good material. It's also sustainable. And on top of that, what would make the perfect stopper? What has been used as a stopper for all of those years? Cork, of course. Everybody understands that cork is a stopper. And cork happened to be also, from an IKEA point of view, a really good material at the time, since all of the wineries had started out using plastics or screw corks. There was too much cork in the world, and the cork industry didn't harvest the cork from out of the trees as they should. If you don't harvest the cork from the trees, every 6 years or so, the trees will die, and you will not be able to harvest at all. And of course, since there were too much cork out there, the prices were lower. And at IKEA, we love low prices. So cork was kind of a good material. Sustainability-wise, cork is a really good material, of course, as well, since it is a natural material, and you could reuse it and reuse it and reuse it over and over. Just grind it down into smaller granulates, and then press it into stoppers or whatever. Fifth, if you have such a great water carafe or such a great idea in terms of design, you want to make it accessible to the world. And we have learned from out of the 70 years or so within IKEA that number one to actually solve, if you want to work with accessibility, is to lower the thresholds for people. Make it possible to buy good design. So it's all about the pricing. And the price of this water carafe in all natural materials is 3.5 euros, which is pretty amazing, I think. Anybody of you have bought it? 365 plus? Yeah, a couple. It's one of the most sold items within IKEA, actually. The fourth and extremely important part, and this is something quite new that we learned. I don't know if you've read some of the articles out there. There's one saying that marketing is dead. I believe also that marketing is kind of dead in the old way. I believe in sharing. I believe in transparency instead, and telling it how it is. So instead of, doing products, then the product developers and the designers are briefing some kind of marketing department of what the intents were with this product, and the marketing department is briefing an agency what the intent was of the product, which is kind of a whispering game, And everything happens afterwards also, when everything is ready. What about starting from the very beginning, sharing what you do, and say that design and communication go hand in hand? They work together. So when you start off doing your design development and your communication development, or your design development, you actually start off sharing from the very beginning. And we have 5 different phases here, which we talk about. A common starting point, where you actually agree upon what you want to do. Then we talk about claiming the idea. That is to tell the market from the very beginning, we're going to do this. We're going to do this in this way. We haven't done it yet. You know what's good with that? Because if you say that you're going to do something, you have to do it. So it makes the organization deliver and deliver faster. Then we share the process. Take them along to all of the trips to Vietnam or to United States and to production sites, or meet the designers. Then meet the people and the prototypes. Actually have your collaboration partners or your external designers talk about how good the process has been and how good it is to work with IKEA and how good this product is and the idea behind it. Then you launch it. And when you've launched it, you can sales start it. This means that it's actually 6 times that you talk about the product instead of once when you just launch it. This means that you ramp up the interest before you sales start, and this means that you won't need as much marketing at the end. What do you think this is? It's a super long queue. Huh? It's in Canada. Toronto, I think it is. If you look upon the weather, it must be Toronto. It's all around the building, you know, around the corner. This is actually one of the first times when we started out, when we launched something, or we launched a thing that we have been starting out talking about almost 3 years before. And it's kind of a crazy thing to see this, you know, hundreds and hundreds of meters of people waiting to buy a rug. Because we had the crazy idea, you know, at IKEA we did like every year we did an art event. And then we were looking for artists all around the world, and we saw that, you know, we wanted new ways of putting art in your home. And one of the ways that has been forgotten is actually art rugs, or turning rugs into art. So we had a lot of people working on that. Here's a Korean artist. This is Craig Green, I think, from UK. Here's an American one. There's actually a tattoo artist from the beginning, if I don't remember wrong. And then there's this guy as well. Virgil. Keep off. So, you know, it's absolutely possible to make a success. This was sold out, all the rugs was sold out in less than a day. Keep off rugs were sold out in less than 12 minutes. And, you know, came reselling and so on and so on. But it's an example of how you could work. So how do I bring this now to my next phase of the life? I actually work with democratic design. I work with those tools every day now when I have my own agency. And what we do at SKEWED is actually 3 different things. I try to start like a small universe with people who are like-minded, who wants to change the world together. One part is an agency, another part is a small media thing, and the third part is our own brand. And within the agency, which we call SKEWED Productions, we're taking on, you know, a thing. And I think this is so important if you want to talk about design, and especially product design. We say that we're not in the business of making things, we're in the business of making things better. That's a huge difference. I'm not interested in products, I'm interested in change. I want to change stuff. Sometimes the change comes from other products. Sometimes it comes from other ideas. Some of the work we work with right now, we're working together with a company called Unique, which is actually based here in the United States, mainly. And we're rethinking STIGMAS through how to design prosthetics in a completely new way, building a value chain which is totally digitalized. Everything is done with generative design tools and actually cooperating together with the end user. So prosthetics, but there's also this thing. Here you can see the generative design tool in works. Taking the biometrics, turning that into a brace for scoliosis, which is a really big stigma for young girls in the world. And it looks beautiful at the end of the day. Taking that line of thinking into gaming gear as well. Could you use those tools, this way of actually designing tools instead of designing products, so the tools are the designers at the end of the day? This is software, isn't it? We looked upon this. There's 2.2 billion gamers around the world, and it's increasing. It's the largest sport. You know that the last time when they had this big esport event, it was actually more viewers on that than it was on the Olympic Games. It's kind of big. Those 2.2 billion gamers, they spend 14 billion hours per week in the chair. Huge ergonomical problems. So we take this on, we do this together with IKEA and the team of Unique, the design team, to apply this thinking to new bespoke products for gamers. Another thing that we're working on with democratic design thinking is actually fish. You know, one of the biggest shifts in the world for the future is going to be the protein shift. And everybody's talking about vegetables. That's the best way. But you know, it takes a lot of water and a lot of other things to make vegetables the change for protein for the future. One of the most efficient ways is fish. Fish actually has the efficiency of, if you feed it in good, sustainable farming ways, like trout or salmon, for instance, you feed it with 1.1 kilo, you get 1 kilo fish out of it. So, to find new ways to introduce fish to people and to package it in a more sustainable way is also something that we work on. And more, of course. SKEWED Conversations, that's the small magazine. This is a crazy endeavor, and I like the way that you work with Freshworks. If you are trying to change the world, you have to give something back as well. I worked with creatives all my life. I worked with creative leadership all my life. I want to give something back. And what I've seen the last, I would say, 10 years now is that some of the best creatives are coming from new areas of the world, which people are not looking at that much, which is Africa, India, and a little bit of China as well coming up. And this SKEWED Conversations is actually a magazine where we go to a place in the world and go deep in that place. And we want to showcase all of the creatives and different creatives to the rest of the world. So give something back to those areas. First out is actually Dakar in Senegal. Have you been in Dakar? No, of course not. Go there. It's a super cool place with super cool people. This magazine is also an experiment for us. We do a thing which is actually two things. So it's words and it's pictures and art. They never mix. They go hand in hand, but they never mix. So interviews with interesting people from out of Dakar, what they want to do, why they do stuff, and then art pieces from those interesting people. And a map for all of you travelers. So it would be easier to find out, where do I find these people? How do I work with them? What are those cold places? This is going to be in late September, early October, the first one, and it's going to be a biannual magazine. And then the last part, SKEWED Things. What is it all about? It is actually to, show that you mean things for real when you do stuff. If you're an agency, most of the time you rely on making stuff for others. But we want to do things ourselves. To, go there, put down the flag and say, this is actually possible. And what we do here is pretty basic designs of clothing right now. We do it in a fully sustainable way from out of organic cotton also. And we are aiming to do it mostly for girls. So taking the street scene, the skateboard scene to girls, start off making this brand cool, not in the United States, not in UK like you usually do it, or in Sweden, but actually making a really cool, functional brand in Africa and in China as a starter, and then bringing it here. This is from Dakar. This is the first No Nonsense series, #1. I love the name of it. 10% of everything we do within SKEWED goes to Skatistan, which is an NGO for skaters. And we're aiming to do local collabs every year for the places where we go to with the magazine. So it's all blends together. What we do within the agency goes together with what we do within the magazine, and goes together with what kind of things we do. It's our own small universe. So That's how we use democratic design nowadays within SKEWED. Thanks a lot.